Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining another episode of the Educational Leadership Podcast. We have another very special guest. Before we introduce our guest, we do want to give a shout out to our co-host, Corinne French.
Hello, so excited to get started today.
Yes, very excited. And we want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Ideal Impact. Ideal Impact's giving hundreds of millions of dollars away to public education around Oklahoma and Texas. And so if your district needs unrestricted funds for higher teacher salaries or whatever your district needs, reach out to Ideal Impact. Okay, we have Superintendent Kilgore today from Bruceville-Eddy. Bruceville-Eddy on the podcast today. Superintendent Kilgore, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you guys for having me. And again, thank you guys for what you're doing, putting out some positive information for public education. We appreciate it.
Yes, yes. There is a lot of great things happening in public education, and we do want to give a shout out to those great things that are happening. And every district's a little bit different. Every district's unique. And if those of that have been listening in, they'll see that. They'll see some of the great things. Superintendent Kilgore, if you can, just so everybody gets to know you a little bit, share a little bit about your background.
Well, I'm an old coach, and definitely old. I'm 61. My goal, wrote an essay in the 7th grade. I want to be a college basketball coach. And I actually started in college as an assistant at McLennan Community College in Waco, which is one of the top junior college programs in the country. Was a Division I assistant at the University of Nevada, Reno. Then I moved on into coaching in high school here locally in Central Texas. And for the last 17 years, I have been the superintendent at Bruceville-Eddy ISD. So I think I'm tied with a couple other soups with the longest tenure in Region 12, which covers about 70 schools. The average stay of a superintendent, I think they tell you in your classes, is 3.75 years or something. So it's a little unique to stay in the same community for this length of time, but I've enjoyed it. And I spent a year as 2 years as an assistant principal, years of high school, and then now just finished my 17th year. We graduated Friday.
That is awesome. I saw that on the website, and it did stick out to me that, man. So I take it you must be doing something right if you're if you've been around the district that's long. What do you attribute that to?
Well, I guess I'm doing a little something right, but there's still plenty of mad mamas to deal with on different items. But I think I think it helps education where Bruceville-Eddy is. We're halfway between Waco and Temple on what everybody in Texas calls the main street of Texas, which is I-35. So we're 10 miles from Waco, 10 miles from Temple, right in the middle. It's the definition, and I don't hear this used very much. It's a bedroom community. So none of our people work in Eddy. There's not a whole lot of business in Bruceville-Eddy. It's two very small communities and maybe 5 businesses in the area. They all work in Waco, Temple, Hillsboro, Round Rock. Some of them even drive to Dallas and Austin and drive back to Waco. So it's very much a bedroom community. And so the school and the churches are the biggest part of this community. So the school is a very big part of everything that goes on in this town. About, Bruceville and Eddy both have about 1,800, population 1,800. We got 593 students and 140 staff. So
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, and that's not a bad thing, right? The pillars of the community are the school system and church, right? So
I tell you what, that's going back to some conservative values. I can tell you that. Of course, it being in Texas and it be heavily conservative and stuff. It fits right in. You could transplant Bruceville-Eddy into deep East Texas or deep West Texas. The only thing that makes a difference with us is we happen to be sitting on the main street of Texas, right here on I-35. I mean, I can walk out my door, my admin building, and watch 18-wheelers go down I-35. We're that close to the highway. And of course, that presents some opportunities and presents some challenges as well for our school district.
Yep. Absolutely. Go ahead, Corinne.
Well, I was gonna say I'm north of you on 35, and gosh, the challenges of the growth that happens, and sometimes it gets to one district and maybe not to another, and it's I'm not demographic or definitely don't understand all of the way that growth happens in cities and communities, but our community is similar where I was on the school board, and the school definitely is the place where people, the jobs, I mean, our in our district, we're the largest employer in our area, our school. So
That would be the same for us.
yeah, I'm imagining you are too. So everyone, and you have the opportunity to love everyone, and what a great thing. I love something you said earlier that you were older. I'm 50, so I don't think you're old. So we have lots of years left in our leadership journey. So you have a lot more to do, I'm sure. What is something when you think of all of those years, and I love how you mentioned the average superintendent stays 3.75. I love that you took it to the 0.75, because I don't know if we've done that statistic lately, but I think like you're right. That is like last time we did that in Texas, that's about average. And so what do you have some tips for those that might want to stay somewhere longer? And the reason I'm asking that is my district had a superintendent who was there 13 years, and I was on the board 10 years. I was on the school board 10 years with him. And you can do a lot when you stay somewhere for a while. And so I'm just wondering, like, what kind of thoughts?
My only advice would be is when you come into a new situation, I think this is in business in general, don't have to be just superintendency. I did not make immediate changes. I went and had a personal interview with every teacher, every custodian. This was 17 years ago, every cafeteria worker, and of course, principals. And I sat down and I said, what's the one thing that if Mr. Kilgore comes in here and makes this change, you're going to think I'm the biggest idiot in the world?
That's a great question.
And I had them write it down. And then I said, what's the one thing that you're going to think Mr. Kilgore is the biggest idiot in the world if you don't change? And so I found a lot of consistencies in those. And so after that first year, I started gradually making changes. And I think that helps. I see a lot of superintendents come in and maybe they're required. There's a lot of times a board requires them. There's immediate changes. Immediate personnel decisions. You know, sometimes you can't help it. The business is the business, but I think there's a lot of times sit back and listen, then look at those changes, and you'll see some patterns. I saw some patterns in our business office practices that I thought, man, everybody had some issues, and so I completely pretty quick brought some new people over in the admin building with me, and they've been with me for a lot of years now, and done an awesome job. And there were some changes. There was a lot of other things that it just jumped out at you. It made that decision-making process a whole lot easier.
I love that. It sounds like you were, I mean, one thing I notice with superintendents is that it seems like there's a level of humility, like that you all have this thread of humility that goes through you, and this ability then to when you need to act fast, you're able to. So like this humble. Well,
I think if you're not humble, this job will humble you real quick. That's the best way to put it. So I think that's an acquired ability all of us must have, or you don't stay in that business, very long. But I think that fits, with my personality and but I think it's definitely an acquired ability that superintendents must have. But they're always, I mean, basically, I feel like I'm paid to put out fires. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times that's what you're doing is putting out fires. And, that's something that I think is starting to change. COVID really got us in putting out fire routine. COVID and then all the school safety stuff that's come on. The leadership and education had to react and really not plan ahead and do things right. We were just reacting to the world and society for several years here. And I think we're starting to come back. And now those long range plans are making sense, and you're doing them, and you can see them coming to fruition. I think, you can see them actually coming, whereas with COVID and then the school safety and all the shootings, it's just like you're wrapped up in all that, and all you were doing was reacting to outside forces. And now I think we're learning that, at the time, we still need to react to those, and you always do, but man, it's time to go back to some long range planning. Let's see what we can do to catch these kids up from COVID and reading and some of the issues that were started with that. And it's time, man, it's time to go to work. And this is my 30s, just finished my 37th year in education, but I feel like I'm still excited and ready to go to work. I have a principals meeting tomorrow. And guess what? We're talking about next year. This year, this year's over, and we kind of finishing it up today. And tomorrow we got a principals meeting. It's time to go to work for the 224-225 school year, and I'm excited about it.
When we have guests on, I always think like, would I want to work for them? Would I if I or would I want to be their board chair? And it's so sweet to continue to meet guests that have this passion for education, and I love that. It sounds like your district is really special. What we always love asking this question also, like, what is something that does set your district apart? Is something that a program that you love that you're doing, or a process to recover or get more teachers there, retaining? What's something that you're doing right now that you're really proud of?
A couple things in your question brought up, talking about recovery. A year ago, June 6th, our ag building was hit by a tornado, and it tore off the shop part of it, the end of it. If you can imagine teaching ag with no shop, no welding, we have 2 ag teachers, and ag is a big part of what we do. Like I said, you can put us in the middle of East and West Texas. We're a small rural town in Texas, and ag is very big. FFA is very big. And we are about to get the keys to that reconstructed building here. A whole senior class got to go a whole year that took ag without getting in that shop. And that's tough. I hate that for those kids, but I tell you what, our 2 ag teachers, Sean Salmon and Talisa Ferguson, just did an excellent job. We still had a cotton judging team go to state in FFA, and they were emphasizing the garden and the other aspects that, of course, ag teach, and certainly wasn't getting into a shop. And we knew, anytime you deal with construction, we were first promised, hey, you'll be in there in spring break. Actually, the first promise was Christmas. Then it was spring break. Then it started kicking. And I told my principals and my FFA teachers about February. It was about Valentine's Day. And I said, guys, we're probably not going to get in that thing till next year. So let's keep this year going. Let's do what we can for these kids and make it a memorable process for them as well, because we have a lot of students that FFA is what they come to school for. It's big. So I thought that recovery from that was big. And of course, all these possible tornadoes around. There's one today. I think 8 o'clock tonight till 10 o'clock tonight is another dangerous area here in Bruceville-Eddy, according to the weatherman. But some other things, we're not a big school, and parents want to send their kids to these small schools, and because it's individual attention, smaller classes. However, a lot of times they'll say, but the bigger schools offer more programs. So we've done something back several years ago. And of course, this is a conjunction with WISD, who I think Dr. Susan Kincannon is one that really works with us, and is the superintendent at Waco ISD. It's the GWACA and GWAMA is what we call them. It's the Greater Waco Advanced Manufacturing Academy and the Greater Waco Advanced Healthcare Academy. And we send students to these 2 programs, bus them into Waco, and they spend their morning at those academies in Waco at classes, and then they return to Bruceville-Eddy ISD for afternoon classes at the end. And they can start this their junior year, and it's a 2-year program. The Healthcare Academy is doing bottom line, if you want to be a nurse, which a lot of people do, and it's not just a female dominated category anymore. We've got a lot of males interested in that. We've got, health science classes, clinic ethics. They're working in conjunction with the local hospitals. So they're actually working at hospitals and doing stuff there. And then the Advanced Manufacturing Academy is giving welding certificates, construction science, and electronics and robotics, which that is big. So you're hitting the STEM activities, and we're able to keep that. And a lot of small schools joined at first, and they've had to back off because of COVID or because of finance. I mean, finance is tough in public schools in the state of Texas. we're keeping it. We're pulling money from somewhere else, and we're keeping our kids at Bruceville-Eddy going to these. And we started off 3 or 4 kids. Now we're getting up 8, 10. And hey, we've got a 75 passenger bus. And if we take 75 kids to those 2 academies, I think that's awesome, because we're getting those kids ready for the workforce. And that's what you hear a complain a lot about public schools, is getting kids ready for the workforce. And yet we have our kids that go to Texas A&M, that go to Baylor, the 5 Texas Tech, and of course UT right down the highway from us, and they go and get those 4-year degrees. But majority of our students are going to junior college or Texas State Technical College, which is also part of that greater Waco Advanced Manufacturing Academy. So, we're trying to get them ready for society and be productive citizens and things. And 84% of our senior class has been accepted to college. We just announced that at graduation Friday. And we announced at graduation that there was $220,000 worth of scholarships they had earned. However, our ex-Students Association gave $76,000. So it's a little over $300,000 that this senior class has earned. And 84% are headed to college. And man, I'm proud of that. The only thing is I'd like to do is next year, let's get it up to 94. Let's get it till we hit that 100% mark for a couple of years in a row.
Yeah.
I always cry in the podcast. That made me cry. I appreciate that so much. The students being prepared for what comes next. We don't always know what comes next. Who knew that we'd be on Zoom when I was in high school? I wouldn't even, you couldn't have explained this to me. I only knew of the Jetsons cartoon, and how you would, or Star Trek or Star Wars. And who knew that we'd get to do those things in our lifetime? So it sounds like you have a heart to make sure your students are in the right place when they leave your district. And so we appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see, today on the podcast, we've talked about a lot of things. We talked about, I think initially when we kicked things off, we were talking about kind of your mindset, or your leadership style. And it shined through right from the beginning, because I made the comment, I said, "Oh, you must be doing something right." And you said, "Yeah, but there's also room for improvement in this area over here." And which says a lot to your leadership and your humility. And then we, also when we were talking about some of the things that have happened and being reactive and more on the defense with COVID and all that. And now you're taking them, you're like, look, we got to get more on the offense here. And which maybe it ties back to some of your coaching days, a long time ago, or in the past. But yeah, so this is really, really good. You see it with, we talk to a lot of districts, and it seems like the districts that are proactive around career readiness, right? So what you're doing with the healthcare and the other programs that you have going on, I think that's phenomenal. I wish they would have had that when I was in school. Curious. So you got 84%, and I know we're running short on time here. 84% roughly. What was it? 84% that goes to college, right?
Yes, of that senior class. And that's not to say that a couple of them aren't. It's just they haven't applied and been accepted yet. But I guarantee you, right now, my counselor over there in the high school, Stephanie Woodard, is talking to a few that have come up today, that first day of summer. And I wouldn't be shocked to see that raised to 87, 88, close to 90 here the first part of the summer. But yes, and that's continuing the college education. Now, there was a time the TEA was really pushing a cookie cutter version of, every student had to go to a 4-year college. You had to go to those schools, Baylor and all this. And no, there's students that have no interest in doing that, and that's not their skill set. But man, there's some that are going to getting these 2-year certificates at Texas State Technical College, McLennan Community College, Temple Junior College, Hill Junior College, all these local junior colleges, and they're getting 2-year certificates, and they're going out in the workforce. And man, they're making productive citizens. They're great husbands and wives, and man, that's still a school goal. I mean, we hear all about test scores, and we hear all, but man, that is still should be a goal of public schools, is producing citizens of this great state of Texas and this great country. So yeah, I think we're like small rural schools do a really good job of doing that all across the state of Texas.
I
that
agree. I agree. Small schools rock.
absolutely. And I was, that brings up kind of one of the part of why I asked that question, because, it seems like students are getting ready for the workforce early, which is great, whether you go to college or not. But, and also, I mean, I went to college 20 years ago or whatever, but it seems like it's going to college. This is my personal opinion. Going to college may not be needed, right? It may not. Yeah, you can go
Well,
get a job that pays better than going to college. You can get involved in society a lot quicker, and versus going and majoring in basket weaving and getting out and trying to find a job.
you can definitely go down to Barnes and Nobles and check out a book, buy a book right now that's about guys that never went to college and they're sitting there billionaires running incredible businesses and stuff. There's a lot of people skills involved with that. I think, but I think the students need to find what's best for them in their life, and their parents are certainly a big help in that. Our school teachers and counselors and principals are also part of that, to find their niche and what's important to them. Man, if you enjoy going to work every day and what you do, then that's a success. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you're doing, because there are so many people I talk to that do not enjoy going to work every day. And that's unfortunate. And so that's what our goal we try to make, is to find out what program can they get in that they're excited that when they graduate and they start going to work every day, that they're actually going to enjoy their job, enjoy going to work every day.
It sounds like your counselor being there still to help them is what one of the keys, I think, to maybe what's your success, is that your people want to also help your students individually in ways that maybe like the numbers already turned into the state or whatever, but here it is, we're still going to keep doing this work. I think a school counselor, a principal, a coach, a teacher, I think that's one of the best ways for a student to figure out what they want to do next, because years ago, you only had access to doing something if your parents wanted you to do it. Like if your dad was a doctor, you were going to be a doctor or whatever, and you just like followed this line. Or like we have a machine shop, so you're going to work at our machine shop, and it just was. And there's nothing wrong with that, because that's what you were learning from. You were learning from the people in your community, and you were following in your parents' footsteps or whatever. But I think a counselor or a coach or a teacher also knows what the students enjoyed. If you don't enjoy math, I personally, it's really, math is difficult for me. So even though I'm going to have a doctor, I'm going to have a doctorate here soon. Every statistics class I took as an adult, I needed so much help. And a counselor can know that about a student and help direct them in the right space, so they don't waste a lot of time doing a career that's going to be miserable. And I think that one-on-one time that it sounds like your counselor is going to have with some of your students over the next couple of weeks is going to make all the difference in the world. So shout out to that person.
Well, that's a great point, and that is that connection that you can make. And our counselor with our high school has 217 kids, so she can emphasize and spend more time and know those individual personalities and stuff. And it's the advantage that small rural schools. The disadvantage is we can't offer some of those great programs that these bigger schools have. But that's part of the reason we're tying in with WISD and Texas State Technical College to do that Guaca and Guama program, because we know that that's our weakness, and yet we want to make it a strength. And so, like I said, I'd love to be busing, instead of 10, 12 students, I'd love to be busing 75 next year, to WISD and getting into some of those programs, if that's where the kids, interests are.
Well, it sounds like you're doing a lot of things right. We often ask our guests to come on again because we need more time with them, and it sounds like that's what we need with you. We need more time, even to share more about those programs and how y'all decided to do those programs. I think the small rural schools that aren't connecting to those other resources will need to do that in order for their students to be able to be connected to the workforce. And most of them are, but I think when you look across the entire state of Texas, it's hard. Partnerships are hard. Community partnerships, and those partnerships all take a ton of extra work. So congratulations for that. I know we like to end our podcast with like a really unique question, and I'll let Gary ask the last question. This is the hardest one.
Well, I appreciate that. Normally I'm doing all the talking, so no, I like it. So, if you, Superintendent Kilgore, if you were to invite a leader to come on the podcast to share their story, who do you think would be inspirational for our listeners to hear?
A leader. Well, you know what? This is going to kind of be a little sentimental pick for
Yep.
me, but I was watching the news last night, and you know, I told you I was a college basketball coach, and obviously had a very passion and love for basketball. Bill Walton, one of the basketball greats, passed away, and I had a chance to meet him one time, and corresponded, you know, a couple of emails with him. But besides being a great basketball player, he was very intelligent. Of course, he was out there. He loved the Grateful Dead, and he had some quirky. But man, he could talk passionately about any subject. And once he met you, he remembered everything about you, and remembered your wife's name. Remember, and that'd be somebody now that I'd love to sit back with him, and I'd love our kids at Bruceville-Eddy ISD. I'd love to just come to a full, you know, assembly of all the high school kids in there and visit with him, because he took education seriously. Obviously, he is one of the basketball greats of all time. So that's kind of a sentimental nod, because I'm feeling a little sentimental, because we lost one of the greats there, and I'm old enough to remember him playing and how good he was. Now some of these kids today don't. Bill Walton, who's that? You know. But man, what a force of will and personality. And he was just not positive about basketball. He was positive about education, about something I'm passionate about, reading. The guy loved to read. That's why he's so versed on all different subjects, because he read, just voraciously read material and could remember it. And so somebody like that just jumps off the, you know, top of the head of my head, just because it's a little sentimental here with him passing yesterday.
Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear that, and I appreciate you letting people know, because yeah, I mean, there's people that make an impact in our lives, and it's great to share that message. Um, any other superintendents in the area that you're like, man, you should come on the podcast and share your story?
Oh, Central Texas has got some great superintendents, and I think you mentioned before about how there is every community basically only has one guy that's sitting in that superintendent's chair, and so you've got a limited group of resources. And I have never met a superintendent that you could not pick up the phone, whether I knew them personally or not, and say, "Hey, you guys are doing a great job doing this. How'd you get it done?
Yep.
Uh, you know, can I ask you some questions about that? We'd love to start that program." And they will talk to you all day. I've called them when I was first, especially 17 years ago when I was first superintendent. What in the world do you do when this happens? Now I'm the old guy getting those phone calls, but superintendents love to share. They love to share ideals. Uh, and I just think it's an awesome group. I mean, I'd love to. I think there's a special place in heaven for superintendents, and we're going to all be up there sharing stories and talking. And I have not met a one that is not. You know, they will talk to you as long as you want to talk
Yep.
about different programs they have and the positive things, and they'll tell you the negative things. I mean, you learn from each other. Hey, don't do this. Try this. And I just think, oh, there's several superintendents in the air. Like I said, Dr. King Cannon, WISD, I have so much respect for her, just because of these two programs that they kept going through COVID for us small schools. Obviously, it's great for WISD schools, but I don't know if she realizes what this is doing for us outer small schools, still allowing these programs to prosper.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, maybe we can reach out to her. I always love interviewing female superintendents also. So woohoo!
She would be a great one.
Yeah. Yay. Well, thank you so much for today.
Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah.
guys. And again, thanks for what you do. I love this, getting out positive information about what's going on across the country in public schools. And you guys are taking the time to do that. And obviously you have a passion for it, and that's great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Superintendent Kilgore, thank you so much. Corinne, thank you. And for those that have been tuning in, stay tuned for future episodes. And before we close out, we do want to give a final shout out to our sponsor, Ideal Impact. If your district needs funding and you don't want to wait on the government and you need unrestricted funds that you can use for anything in your district, reach out to Ideal Impact. Thanks for tuning in.